Welcome everybody to Rad Pod and Chill. It's you guys again. Oh my God, it's you guys again.
Hey, I got a new shirt.
Oh yeah, let's see your new shirt. Hi-Fi got a new shirt.
I got a new shirt.
Roger did something wrong, dude.
Well, he's been doing something wrong since LSD was still legal, so that's I think it's.
Did he invent LSD too? Wouldn't surprise me.
No.
He's not a chemistry person.
No, but I will say that he's my American Monster number 3, and as you guys know, because I think I actually learned it from you and Gal, he was already doing the Stop the Steal back in 2016. He was already doing that operation. So the fact
he also did Stop the Steal in 2000. It was called the Brooks Brothers riot.
Yes,
in Florida.
It's all in the American Monster series because he, like Donald Trump, was a protege of Roy Cohn, the deny guy, and yeah. So
can I just say one thing about Roger Stone real quick?
Please.
Especially because you mentioned my friend Gal. The new videotape from 3 fucking years ago is great. Thank you so much, Dutch film guy. 3 years after you filmed it, showing it to one outlet instead of, I don't know, the January 6th committee or anybody like that, right? So I get you're a filmmaker, you're trying to get a documentary, but that's first thing. So whatever, Dutch film guy, at least you did it. In the meantime, people like Gal and me and you and Hi-Fi and shitloads of other people listening right now have been in real time showing step by fucking step exactly how he's doing it all the way along with his buddy Mike Flynn and all these other motherfuckers, Steve Bannon. We've been saying it all along. Why does it take a little clip of Roger Stone just doing the same shit Roger Stone does every single day from some Dutch guy when there's hundreds of Americans who've been screaming in their fucking ear for 3 years? I'm just wondering. That's my first TED Talk.
That's a very good question.
Actually, that leads me to what I want to say. Shout out to Sherrod Brown of Ohio, because I've been trying to get the FBI to deal with some of this bullshit. The FBI is just, I don't know, they got their thumb up their ass. Maybe they're all worried about McGonigal. I don't know. But they haven't been doing nothing. But Sherrod Brown called him. He called me back, wrote me a letter, and he's going to be helping me out. So Sherrod Brown cares about his constituents. That's cool.
Why don't you tell people who Sherrod Brown is? Not everybody knows.
Oh, well, Sherrod Brown is one of the senators of Ohio. Our other senator is, he's a good guy. Our other senator is J.D. Vance, who is a Peter Thiel lackey, and
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Oh, yes. It was not too early for our first Peter Thiel moment. It should be noted that Hi-Fi got inadvertently banned yet again off the tweeters because he used a word of questionable sensibilities in relation to a very smart J.D. Vance tweet, which we have talked about before, but he was not using the word, I don't even remember what it was, something along the lines of exterminated. It wasn't exterminated. It was
eliminate.
Eliminate, yes, eliminate.
He must be eliminated. Come on.
He meant eliminated from the Senate and from being
you're not actually trying to talk, Hi-Fi, because you're
an operative.
No, it's probably better that I said that off mic, actually.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, it's amazing. You would get banned for that, but JD is like with his fucking rifle, like pointing at Chinese spy balloons and shit. Remember that?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's fine. Whatever. Some fucking chud in the actual U.S. Senate with an assault rifle pointed at the sky, and Hi-Fi over here using fair like a common English word.
Eliminated.
That doesn't mean kill somebody all
No.
the time.
No.
It's
a drag. It's a drag. Do you remember the other Peter Thiel lackey who was trying to get into politics and trying to end up? I think he was trying to go in. I think he was actually going up against Arizona. Mark Kelly.
Master.
He used to stand there with a gun too. Like they're so obsessed with these, phallic symbols. Really, is what they are, and they got to stand there with the biggest gun they can find and try to scare people. I'm glad that he didn't work out. I'm glad Mark Kelly held that seat. That was very important.
You know what these asshats call themselves? They call themselves libertarians now, right?
Yeah.
So if I may bring everyone back, libertarians, in my experience, were independents who wanted to legalize weed.
Totally. Every single libertarian I knew, that was it. That was the whole thing.
I mean, they might have been a little edgier than your normal folk. They read some Ayn Rand, and maybe they're a little dickish.
And then their frontal lobe develops.
But they weren't gun printing like fucking nut jobs with like stockpiles of plastic fucking ARs in their basement. Like, I mean, what the fuck happened, libertarians? Because I don't know what kind of liberty you're looking for, but I don't want the kind of liberty that takes us back to the fucking Wild West, where we're being, hunted by saber-toothed tigers or whatever the fuck you're
Listen, I'll never forget Henry Rollins' Black Flag fame, etc. Henry, I'll never forget him in the green room at Fox 11 telling, I think his name was Larry Elder. Yeah. Telling Larry Elder that, what he thinks of a libertarian is they're the first ones to go run and hide, when the shit really hits the fan. It was a very funny interaction. I will say that
Larry Elder is a goddamn garbage fire, man.
Again, a lot of things changed. I knew these.
I know they do. A lot of these people, but Larry Elder has turned into, just a spokesman for white supremacists, which is very disturbing.
Hold up. Speaking of Stop the Steal, Larry Elder was caught when he was running for governor, having preloaded a website that already had all kinds of false numbers before the gubernatorial election. So this is a pattern that we're seeing. And again, I knew so many of these players, and I actually wrote about this. I wrote today about what I called the Gangland 19. I decided not to just list out who these people were, but to give people some salient details about some of these folks, like the Powells and the Eastmans, the Clarks, whatever. What's so interesting to me is that so many of them, like Jenna Ellis was anti-Trump, and Cheesebra was a Democrat, right? Like all these people like had these pivotal things that occurred. Now, somebody like I believe it was Eastman who actually
Jenna Ellis just saw like a shiny object and got beguiled by it, and like, I mean, honestly, I'm sorry. She's over here doing GoFundMe's. Like, seriously, you didn't know, Jenna, that you were gonna need some fucking change for.
Hey, listen.
Jenna, hold on.
Gibson Go. My bad. Gibson Go.
It is a Gibson Go, and the reason this is important is because I believe they are laundering money through Gibson Go, and the companies behind them.
You don't say.
This is one of Hi-Fi's one of his long-term investigations that he's been working on. Dating back.
I don't mean to diminish it. I'm just saying it is a long-running project.
Ever since Rittenhouse's fundraiser, and also the trucker convoys when Hi-Fi was investigating all of the curious credit card transactions, because there were some very, very curious ones. But again, going back to...
I'm not actually torturing children. That's the neighbors.
What's that?
I thought maybe you would hear the screeching children. It sounded like
we welcome screeching children.
Can I just need to point something out real fast about
please.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Oh, geez.
That let me scroll up here a little bit. Kyle has a new nonprofit. I'm sure there's no room for abuse there.
Can we not? I don't want to. I do not want to.
I mean,
I know.
So
I know.
I wrote a whole thing about reality butchers in prime time. We're just going to get nothing but junk from all these junk people, and it's going to be junk pile up going on through 2024, and we have to view them as reality butchers. Their job is to lie and obfuscate. It's going to be endless. The more Trump gets in trouble, as Ruth Ben-Ghiat said, the more the information warfare is going to be just voluminous and nonstop. It's just going to be nonstop. So I decided to call them reality butchers. So we have like a framework, and it doesn't infect anyone's heads as much. Because even people who do this fight, when you constantly see that in prime time they are still platforming liars, and these lies are not innocuous. It's repetition, it's propaganda techniques. And so anything that Kyle Rittenhouse or Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's just all garbage. That's all that is. And also, I was looking at some of Trump's old tweets when I was reading through the Fulton County indictment. He keeps referencing garbage TV. Like, don't think about Newsmax or OAN or any of the channels that he's referencing as anything but garbage TV. It's just garbage. It's garbage. It's bad enough. Yes.
I just want to say, I think, yes, it's garbage, but I think there's something going on that's a little bit worse than garbage, if you know what I mean.
I do.
So I just wanted to bring up two separate events that Mike Flynn has attended in the last 2 days. One of those events is Mind Pillow Guy's fucking election, comedy telethon of the most embarrassing fucking grifters and boring liars you've ever heard in your life, just grinding people's brains into fucking mush. In the context of a very, very dark Christo-fascist ideology. So briefly, I want to tell a brief story about Mind Pillow Guy's event. So Steve Bannon was covering Mind Pillow Guy's event, and I had written a tweet about it being a Christo-fascist thing. Stop! I thought you were killing me. It was a Christo-fascist event because Mike Lindell said out loud, if we're wrong about all of this, meaning all of the election shit that they're getting people radicalized into, it's okay because it's the end times and believers think that Jesus is going to come get us. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said it's a win-win. So I wrote an explanation about where that's coming from and how the end times mythology is a relatively new invention designed to radicalize people into genocidal shit. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so I'm almost done, Hi-Fi.
Well, I can just show you what happens next.
You can put it up if you want, but that's fine. You're in charge of the visuals. But when
here we go.
I want to go to Calamity Jane Zirkle, who's with us here, about some of the social media, particularly one post that came up after Mike Lindell's speech. Jane, can Denver show it? And Jane, can you read it for us?
Yes, so this tweet was put out by a self-described anti-disinformation activist where he describes Mike Lindell's motivation behind this summit as Christo-fascist motivations and insults him for saying that believers will go to heaven in end times, and says that it is this mentality that ultimately drove the election denial and then resulted in January 6th. It is quite interesting what we've been seeing, but despite all that, most of the social media posts have been supportive of Mike Lindell. He has generated tons of support from conservatives, and people are tired of what they're seeing in their elections. They are for fair and free elections, and like he said, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue.
Jane, thank you so much. I want everybody, let's get this. If Captain Bannon and Grace can get that in the chat, I want everybody to read this, of what they call us Christo-fascist.
That is the funniest.
I win.
Funniest goddamn thing.
So all I want to say is that Steve Bannon is looking more and more like Mrs. Doubtfire every day.
But I mean, multi-shirted motherfucker. Anyways, so we put that up, and my tweet goes bananas, and it's got like, I don't know, 1.5 million views or something on it, which is like fucking awesome. Like, I'm trying to imagine the thought process, because here's the thing, and this is important. Mike Flynn was in the building with Steve Bannon at the time. Mike Flynn, who, in case you missed it, is suing me for $10 million for calling him, among other things, a Nazi, even though he just acted like a Nazi. So anyways, Mike Flynn was there. Also, I'm guessing Joe Flynn was there, who briefly unblocked me today just in time for me to ask him if his brother was co-conspirator 20. So in case you're unfamiliar, Mike Flynn is one of the prime candidates for co-conspirator 20. So I asked him that, and then he blocked me again because he's pussy. Anyway, sorry.
You just couldn't help yourself.
I can't help it.
No, you know.
He's such a...
He's
Anyway.
he's menacing.
He is menacing. He's a horrible criminal, but also that. Anyways, so I wanted to thank Steve Bannon for giving me lots of advertising, and also for educating his audience, because if you noticed, they had nothing. It was just like this vague, like, hold up. Wait, he said mean thing. It was mostly just, giving them time to read my work. So thanks, Steve.
Well, so Steve Bannon is my American monster number 5. And again, writing about Trump Russia has been my life's work, as you guys know, reporting on all of this, investigating this. But each time I take the time to do a deeper dive or revisit some of this content, I learn a lot more. And I think that Bannon has been wildly underestimated, certainly in corporate media, for just how incredibly dangerous he is. Monique Camara contributed to that report, and she talked about what he's doing in Italy, the Italian experiment, as well as what he's been attempting to do in Europe, which is basically, a lot of work for what appears to be, Kremlin-friendly operation. So if he does something like that, I wouldn't think it's too. I would think that there's something more behind you, and it concerns me more probably than it concerns you. So and maybe because he's fresh on my mind.
Steve Bannon is legitimately evil, and legitimately not only actually wants to dismantle the administrative state.
Yeah.
But is not a dumb man at all, and has set up an entire machine despite being disgraced 14 different other times. He keeps popping back up like a fucking diseased mushroom, and here he is again with a pretty powerful platform. It's no joke. I mean, it's just Sobek and fucking Bannon and all these guys on his war room thing, and it has a lot of power on the right. And this guy is a disciple of Julius Evola. Julius Evola is basically the first esoteric Nazi. Is the kind of guy who started Order of Nine Angles and Atomwaffen and some of the most dangerous fucking like ideologies on planet Earth came from Steve Bannon's muse, which is this guy Julius Evola. He's genuinely as close to the Antichrist as you can get. I say that about Peter Thiel, but I think actually Bannon is probably closest to actual Antichrist. Because because he's pretty smart.
Yeah, well,
and his whole thing is the marketing side, right?
Right.
And he's
so couple things that I realized when I was writing about him in the American Monster series is he kind of reminded me a bit of Prigozhin. Like he always ends up as the figurehead of these various operations. And one of his Breitbart colleagues called him a parasite in search of a host body, and he always seems to find those host bodies. That's how I opened the report. My friend Kurt Bardella referred to him that way. And I will say that he's not a criminal mastermind. And I say that because if you read the Bill DeWall indictment, you'll see that, that was not the work of any, tremendous genius. That was just a stone cold grift. So it's interesting, but all these guys, everybody in my series, Manafort, the Gray Cardinal, Roger Stone, Roy Cohn, Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, I'm going to continue to make this series. I think it's very important to revisit these characters. There's so much connective tissue going back many years when you talk about Manafort and Stone and Trump and how they were influenced by the attorney of the mafia crime families of New York. So, this has always been a criminal syndicate. And I think that's what's so incredible about the Fulton County indictment is that you see gangland in it. You see a criminal syndicate. I mean, fucking Rico, you know what I mean? So, yeah. But if you go ahead, Jim.
I was just gonna say, yeah, okay, Rico, but why is this motherfucker unindicted? Why is Bannon flipped the bird to the House of Representatives 2 years ago, and then got convicted for it a year later, and he's still running around like the little fucking Nazi he is, trying to brain fuck the world into chaos. That's his ideology, and it's just mind blowing.
Wow.
This guy who has just rained down chaos on the world is just allowed to continue this shit even after he gets convicted.
So he still has New York. There's still New York prosecuting him. He does have the 4-month sentence looming. Trump, when he pardoned him,
harder.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I know you are. I'm not yelling at you.
Can I tell you guys a few things about some of the folks that were indicted in Fulton County? Because I find it super exciting. First of all, what I wrote about Rudy Giuliani is probably my favorite thing that I've ever written because it makes me laugh so freaking hard. But John Eastman clerked for that grifter Clarence Thomas, which I found really interesting. He's also a twice failed candidate. Mark Meadows, interestingly, was a birther. And I don't know if you guys remember, but he was also a Tea Party congressman who helped shut down the government in 2013. And that was the same year he voted against the Violence Against Women Act. I think this stuff is all very important. And of course, you guys know Sidney Powell. I mean, all this stuff I could write pretty much off the top of my head. I think it's very awful that Jeffrey Clark, which I obviously you guys know some of the things that he was up to, but he was a long-time pusher of the fossil fuel industry's anti-regulatory agenda and a promoter of the debunked propaganda film 2000 Mules, which I find fascinating. And one of these guys, I'm trying to figure out which one, I got to remember, tried to reboot. Oh yes, John Eastman tried to reboot the birther trope, tagging Kamala Harris, saying she couldn't be a VP because she wasn't an American citizen. So these guys like replay their greatest hits, but they all add up to something awful. And what's weird is that, again, some of these people were anti-Trump. Some of them were Democrats. I don't know what happened to them, but things went really squirrely, you know, in the 2016, in the year of 2016. One other thing I want to bring up before we move on. It's really clear to me after reading the indictment how many people were involved in really trying to harm election workers, Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Shay Moss, and how they tried to actually set her up with set Ruby up with a publicist to try to encourage her to admit to, you know, election fraud. And there was a pastor that she had to call 911 on 3 times because she was so afraid of her life, for her life. So anybody who watched the January 6 hearings will remember Ruby and Shay and what heroic women they are. And I just wanted to pay my respects to them for withstanding being demonized by Trump and Giuliani, which they should be in prison just for that act alone.
Well, that's the whole point of stochastic terrorism, right? It's to demonize a person or a group of people to generate hate against them, and you cause an in-group, out-group situation, and with that you can, you know, motivate people to violence, and we're seeing it. However, I will say, you know, hopefully props to Fulton County because they are going after the individuals online who are doxing, you know, grand jurors. And there was a woman in Texas who was arrested, a 43-year-old woman who was arrested in Texas for calling the judge in the DC case and leaving racist threats.
And I wonder why. I wonder why somebody would do that.
Can I just say about Ruby and Shay real quick? First of all, I totally agree. They're heroes, but they didn't want to be fucking heroes, right? They didn't sign up for that shit at all. There's a couple things I want to note. Obviously, black women, right? What were they accused of? They were accused of passing drugs, right? When it was a fucking ginger mint.
Right. Racist drugs.
It's racist and this is also important, misogynistic, right? So as we've talked about before a lot on this show, misogyny is the easiest and foremost thing that can be weaponized in order to divide a society. It's 50-50 approximately, right? You can literally cut a society right down the middle with issues about women. So what they do is they take an issue like abortion, women's health care, and they weaponize it into an issue that becomes more important than your nation, or in some cases your family, right? And that's called identity politics. When your identity becomes stronger than the system that you're in, then you become a weapon against that system. And so much of this is about that exact kind of thing, and that's why Shay and Ruby were picked out of the thousands of people. And yes, bless them for being so brave about it.
Do you remember though Giuliani demonizing them?
Yes,
and Trump and getting them, you know, the threats on their lives and freaking having to go into like witness protection.
It was Gamergate with racism.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that's so. In case you guys don't know, Gamergate was a misogynist cult that started actually late 2013, but blew up in 2014. That was specifically about picking targets, and then to Heidi's point and Hi-Fi's point, creating physical violence out of it, right?
Yeah.
By swatting people, calling the cops and saying that there's a shooting or something going on in that house, leading people to, in some cases, get injured and killed, right? So much of this has been about figuring out how to weaponize the internet, weaponize these structures so that they can do stuff like that, so that they can pick Ruby and Shay instead of just, Brianna Wu, for example, who we had on our show, right? Who was, while notable as a human being, was a random target. It wasn't about her at all, right? And Shay and Ruby are similar. They're used as an example, as a way to generate hate in order to divide the country.
So it's funny that you mentioned Brianna, because in my American Monster 5, Steve Bannon, I have an audio clip from Brianna Wu, because clearly, as you guys know, because you taught me this, he saw what was going on with young men online and how that could be weaponized, and he could weaponize it toward Trump and politics and weaponize that misogyny. And Brianna Wu talks about what it was like to be targeted with death threats and rape threats and having her life hurt and her marriage threatened and everything. And then you know what she says at the end? And she says, and you know what? The people who did it, Bannon, Milo, she mentions one other person. She said they all end up getting, jobs in the White House. They all end up going, into Trump's administration. And that's what happened, when corporate media didn't do their job in 2016. And, people believed that a reality TV fake rich guy who laundered money for the Russian mob and other foreign enemy states, ends up in the White House. So.
Yeah, well, they thought that it was more important that Hillary had emails, and then it became important that not that the Russians hacked the DNC's emails, but the nonsense generated from digging through these emails, which leads me to the other event that I wanted to mention from earlier, which is this fucking Pizzagate event that's going on in Sarasota.
Yeah.
It is literally, and I'll go back to my thread about it, but it's horrifying. It's literally an American ISIS conference where a bunch of just pure professional liars, including straight up Pizzagate propagandists, like the original Pizzagate propagandists, are explaining to people how they should identify pedophiles. And then people are pretending that they have all this experience going to rescue kids, which is complete horseshit. And they're instructing these people to go do that. They're modeling this vigilante behavior where you're supposed to identify pedophiles, and they're going to tell you who those pedophiles are, by the way. And then you're supposed to go surveil them and target them and call the cops on them and find out who their friends and their neighbors are and put it in your fucking Telegram channel. It's absolutely horrifying and is going to get people killed, which is the whole point.
Absolutely.
We're in a dangerous situation where we got MindPillow doing big lie shit, which led already to J6, and they're upping the game now with this child trafficking, trauma porn bullshit that is really fucking dangerous. So anyway, batten down, because they're. Oh, and by the way, and I will land my plane here. Next week, Mike Flynn has a Reawaken event in Las Vegas with Holocaust denier Rosie O'Donnell, which she claims.
No. No, you mean Roseanne Barr. Rosie O'Donnell was
Roseanne
my
Barr.
friend.
I'm so sorry, Rosie.
We love Rosie. We love
Rosie's
Rosie.
great. I did not mean that. Sorry.
I love her so much. I love you
Rosie's
so much,
awesome.
Rosie.
Not Rosie.
Yeah.
Roseanne Barr.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're very different people.
Yeah.
But Roseanne
It was
Barr,
the index of celebrities named R.
No, it's okay. We clarified it.
I want to point an important thing out. So Roseanne Barr is co-headlining this reawaken event. Roseanne Barr was the first QAnon celebrity. So she tweeted out like 2 weeks after Q started, QAnon DM me in the next 24 hours, and then WW1WJ like in December of 2017. And then 5 fucking years later, she's at Mike Flynn's QAnon conference, co-headlining with negative billionaire Alex Jones, who was one of the earliest and most prominent pushers of QAnon.
As well as many other horrible things.
Yes, but the point is that within the span of a week, we've got 3 very, very intense re-indoctrinating events in a row, which any one of which is extremely dangerous, because not just the people who are at the event watching it, get this dose of anger and rage and disgust about fantasy, boogeymen, and that's exactly the conditions that you need in order to generate violence. Right.
I want to point a couple things out, since we have been begging for, the DOJ or the military to do something about this renegade general who's out radicalizing people. I do want to point something out that one of our friends, Radpod friends, Lori, sent me today. According to Religion News Services, Christian nationalism opponents are getting organized. So basically, faith groups are actually teaming up with secular groups to do something about Christo-fascism, because clearly, our president, our Justice Department, and our military we do not see them doing anything quickly enough. So now it's actually up to faith-based groups organizing with secular groups. And I'm heartened by this, because again, there's been multiple Christian groups who've decried Mike Flynn and Roger Stone and have, warned people about them as being false prophets.
I just have to say, it's about great. It's about fucking time.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, but if you're a Christian and you haven't been sucked into this bizarro world QAnon version of faith that's been around for 2,000 years, then defend it, because right now it's being weaponized to hurt people.
Yeah.
The magical thinking about Jesus Christ and all of the sort of wonderful mythology that I'm happy that you believe in is being used to enter people's minds.
Yeah.
And it's just very important that people who have that faith understand that is both a vulnerability for themselves and people around them. Make sure you protect them, and don't let people come to them as Heidi said, false prophets.
Right.
For example, just briefly, and I will land my plane, the New Apostolic Reformation, the NAR. All it is a bunch of grifting liars who literally get their fucking prophecies from Central Command on their cell phones.
All right.
But it's supposedly from God, and then they remix it in their special little ways and put it on their Telegram channels and make Rumble fucking videos, and then get donations for it. And those donations get funneled into paramilitaries and dominionist activist terrorist groups, like CNP, that are funding all of this stuff.
Right.
So it's I'm just saying, it's very important that Christianity rise back up
Yeah.
If you're going to be an actual religion and not
Reclaim
just a carrier away from fascism and cults,
Right.
get your shit together.
I do want to say that thank you, Jim. One of the Presbyterian ministers who's part of this movement and this coalition did basically say that the MAGA movement they call white Christian nationalism. So maybe Steve Bannon in his next propaganda show will quote the Presbyterian minister. So we had an incredible, well, first of all, members of RadPod's community, my Betty Dangerous community, and Jim's Mind War community banded together to work for Ohio. I had David Pepper on my Betty Dangerous speakeasies multiple times. We had David Pepper on RadPod multiple times. He, of course, is a former Ohio politician, and I call him a democracy coach. He's written Laboratories of Autocracy. His latest book is Saving Democracy. We did a breaker with him earlier this week to ask him what we did right in Ohio. So many members of all of our communities that I just mentioned phone banked for Ohio, wrote postcards for Ohio, did so many things to help defeat what was basically the GOP trying to rig elections in Ohio. And let's see, do we have any clips from David, or am I doing this intro for no reason?
Oh, I got something somewhere.
Oh, yay, yay. I'll go ahead and quote some of the things he said, because first of all, it was quite a moment.
Hold on.
Yes.
Because I want to talk about this one. People, I think, are starting to realize that the fight that the right wing of America is fighting, we're against women's reproductive rights, we're against gay rights, we're against transsexual rights. All of these rights are human rights. Do you think people are starting to understand that we are in a battle for democracy and human rights?
I think what really has happened since Dobbs is people are waking up to the fact that we're in a battle for democracy. But as I try and caution in my books, that normally doesn't win you elections. What wins you elections is when the thing that's being contested affects your life every single day. And so I think what we have to do when we talk about democracy is make sure we conclude the sentence, conclude the thought. They're attacking democracy for a reason. And the reason is they're trying to push policies that will dramatically impact your life that you don't want and that a majority of our country doesn't want. And so this became a perfect storm for them. They got caught really trying to rig democracy. But the purpose of them rigging democracy was to get in the way of a basic vote in November on whether or not Ohio women have a right to choose going forward. And so the connection between the democracy frame, but the real life consequences if they succeed in subverting democracy, that connection, I think, moves many voters. That the 30,000-foot battle over what is a democracy, what is gerrymandering, what is, some people get, like me and you and a lot of people now more and more are energized by that debate. But to really get into the kind of turnout we saw, new voters, young people, it's when you say to them, oh, they're doing this for a reason. And the reason is, in this particular case, that unless we vote a majority in November of a woman's right to choose, the story of the 10-year-old rape victim being forced to Indiana will be Ohio forevermore.
Right, frickin' on. So what basically happened is because of the work of people like David and because of the work of people that are in our communities, the nation got hip to what was happening in Ohio, and pro-democracy people nationwide pitched in to help Ohio. And what they basically did is they stopped the effort they basically thwarted Ohio's GOP leaders from undermining the public good. And that is one of the things that I learned from David Pepper.
We need to do a hell of a lot more than that, right? But it's just a fucking great start, and David Pepper is an inspirational dude, and I hope he keeps doing what he's doing.
Yeah,
well,
me too.
There are people putting together lists of places all around the country where Republicans ran unopposed, right?
Yeah.
Where no one stepped up. People need to step up. They need to talk about local functionality, fix the roads, fix the water, fix the schools, right? And that should get people involved. And I don't know, maybe we just sit back and watch the Republican Party implode, because Rudy Giuliani not so subtly threatening Donald Trump for money. I mean, that was a shakedown in plain sight. That was amazing.
Well,
yeah, I mean, the problem is that when you get, you know, implosions, right, or explosions. So I don't mean to get all nerdy, but in space, when you have a big implosion, it goes and it sucks into a fucking black hole, or one of those very tiny, very dense neutron motherfuckers that will like obliterate anything in its path. It might be smaller, but it has the kind of attraction and power to devastate the entire quadrant of space around it, right? There's a similar thing here where, yes, I mean, right now there's a third of the country easily that is at some level been affected by coercive propaganda, right? Who believe Joe Biden isn't the fucking president or whatever, right? Not all of those people are gonna like take up arms against their neighbors or any shit like that. Not remotely, most of them. But when you explode a movement like that, you're going to be left with a center core that's going to be incredibly radicalized and incredibly dangerous. And so,
aggressive.
As I showed recently, for example, there's a very scary anarchist movement that is basically the explosion of the libertarian movement, which used to be, you know, kind of amorphous but relatively large, and is now this angry fucking, you know, core of rageful people. So, you know, yes, it's good. It will be good to watch the GOP implode, as it were, but I'm very concerned about the radiation coming from the remaining, you know, source.
as you should be. And the thing is, the GOP, funded and propped up by the fossil fuel industry, what they do when they've had a loss is they immediately figure out a workaround and start mobilizing all kinds of menacing ways to subvert democracy. So there will be no sitting back. There will be nothing but action, you know, every damn day between now and 2024. And as David taught us, when you have a victory like we had in Ohio, spend an hour or two, celebrate a job well done, and then get right back into the trenches. This is trench warfare. The other thing that is very important to note is that what worked in Ohio isn't sexy. It is the labor of democracy. It's postcards and phone banking and texting and canvassing and making contact and activating the base in all those ways that we do. As David said, a postcard may not make somebody vote a different way, but it sure as hell will remind people to vote and to turn in their ballots and all of that. So lots to do. I have been tracking a very inspirational young man in North Carolina that I'm looking forward to bringing on RadPod as soon as I can make contact with him. He's a young Black leader, and North Carolina needs our help, just like Ohio needed our help. So I'm looking forward to mobilizing on behalf of pro-democracy activism in North Carolina as well. A lot of these states need our help. So they
do. I mean, I've been you know, grinding through some of Lindell's fucking election fraud conference, and the thing that you have to say is that they're actually doing that kind of work. The problem is that the kind of work that they're doing is literally, they have a list of items, each one of which is specifically designed to make less people vote,
yeah,
and make it harder for the ones that do to vote.
Right.
It's in all the entire list, and it's like freedom, fucking whatever. Like we're going to liberate and guard the vote.
Right.
Like guard the vote, by the way, is the new style.
Right.
That's what it's called.
Oh my God.
No, I'm telling you right now.
Thank you, Jim.
So anyway, this whole fucking guard the vote is a bunch of like old ladies and shit. Sorry, but like knocking on their councilman's door and just bugging the shit out of them until they make these horrendous moves. For example, there's a county in Arkansas that's going against its own state government to do paper printed fucking ballots, which is their mantra, in the county, in addition to the tabulated votes. They're doing both at the same. I don't know how the fuck, but it's just gonna make a giant fucking mess, right?
Chaos operation.
Votes, right? Which is the whole point.
Yeah.
I will land my plane. The point is that this election thing is in fact already organized. It's just only organized by the opposition, and we've got to get our fucking act together and understand that, you know, these kinds of events, they may seem absolutely insane to us, right? Fucking Mike Lindell up there talking about God knows what the fuck he's saying, right? But people sit there for dozens of hours and get their brains scrambled to believe this shit. And it's very important that we all understand that that's happening. Protect yourself and your loved ones from getting sucked into it, and work your ass off, especially in your local vicinity, to prevent further infiltration and chaos.
Absolutely. We keep on forgetting. I mean, we don't forget here at RadPod, but senator races are really important. Federal races are really important. What's happening in your community is really freaking important. I do want to mention one Senate race that's incredible to keep an eye on. And full disclosure, this is my friend, but Tammy Baldwin is fighting very hard in Wisconsin to retain her seat. The Koch cadre spends so much money to try to get her ousted, but she's very important. She was the first openly gay senator, and she is incredible. And so everybody who can, please do try to help her campaign. I want to say two things about what you said, though, Jim. One thing that one of our members brought up is that we do need to have more in real life events, because that is what the MAGA cult is quite good at. They have those, you know, rallies, community things, and that is, for some people, that's probably the only way they get out aside from church. So the in real life component is very critical. But what happened in Ohio is super important, because the Secretary of State there, who's a bad actor, expected or said that he expected or anticipated an 8% turnout, which David Pepper thought was a form of voter suppression in and of itself by stating that the turnout would be 8%. Well, guess what? Because of the media doing its job and Pepper rallying everybody, there was a 40% turnout. Okay. So like, that is huge. And that is the kind of momentum that we have to keep up. And as David said, this started in Kansas a year ago. We can keep this up. The main thing that we just have to remember is that GOP is that we don't want what they're offering. We don't want what they're offering. We have to remind people of that. These are failed policies that hurt communities and hurt people, period.
And actually one of the big ones is gerrymandering, and that's why
this is a pro-democracy map that crosses many lines. It's got the libertarians in it, and some of them, wow. You know, Hi-Fi, you know, Geauga County, that is a conservative place. It voted.
Oh yeah.
I think some real anti-government people looked at like they would, I hope, at gerrymandering, looked at this and said, I'm not for this. This is insane. This is empowering corrupt politicians. I don't want that. So I think this is a real starting point for a pro-democracy coalition that hopefully in the next couple of years also helps us end this horrific anti-democracy gerrymandering we're stuck with as well.
Pro-democracy. It's not left or right, yo, at this point. It is pro-democracy. It's a republic if you can keep it.
You don't even have to be pro-democracy. You just have to be anti-Nazi, right? You just have to be anti-billionaire, anti-fucking psychopath, anti, like just cruelty and chaos and dumb assery.
You know who that reminds me of?
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
That was exactly what was in my mind. You were on my mind.
Oh my gosh.
That, I need to say, that asshat who's behind so much of this shit, be absolutely shocked, said in 2009 that democracy and freedom are not compatible. Guess what he blamed for it, among other things? Women's suffrage. I shit you not.
I know.
That is where the mind of the libertarian billionaire has traveled, right? I mean, it was already at fuck democracy in 2009. Imagine where the Antichrist has taken his ideas and his systems for creating chaos 14 years in the future, right?
Yeah.
So, there was a good reason for that moment, and I cherish it forever. I thank you.
Yeah. I don't suppose you cut that Wes Clark meme I asked you to quit, right? Cut. I mean, Wes Clark said the most amazing thing, and I'm going to get Hi-Fi to clip it for us at some point because I want to use it on the show.
I have it.
Just like the Peter Thiel moments. You have it? Can we see it?
Maybe. No, I'm going to save it for the end because we still.
Okay, good.
We're going to hold it.
Thank you, Hi-Fi. Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Just vamp a little bit longer, Heidi.
Okay, well, actually, I have some things I need to talk about real fast.
Oh, good.
Because
perfect.
one of the things that all these motherfuckers do, every single one, is they all do the walk back, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Peter Thiel, he did the walk back, right?
Well, the walk back is just politics.
That's bullshit. You say something like that.
No.
You're not fucking joking.
No. The walk back is a political op. The walk back is what they said is what their point was. The walk back is just politics. It's literally that's how I learned that from Ruth. It's
unfortunately his boyfriend isn't going to be able to walk back.
Oh, Jim. Oh my God. Well, for those who don't know, yes, one of Peter Thiel's paramours.
Not Eric Prince.
What's that?
Not Eric.
Oh my God. We're just. Can we go back to talking about Mrs. Doubtfire? Can we go back to talking about Mrs. Doubtfire? The reason I said Mrs. Doubtfire is Mike Flynn had made a comment, an anti-drag queen comment, and I'm looking at Bannon going, he looks more and more like Mrs. Doubtfire. Now, I love Robin Williams. I'm not talking about Robin Williams, but I'm talking about a character that was performed with Robin Williams in drag. So I thought it was a weird moment. It's like these guys, like, I don't know what's going on with them. It's always projections. So I don't know what's going on, but something unsavory, not talking about that. What I'm saying is they're anti stuff that we always find out.
So here's one thing, right?
Help me out, Jim.
They're accusing people of stealing elections when they steal elections.
That's what I'm saying, man. That's one thing.
Yeah. But let me take it one step further. They project every single time. So now what are they doing? They're screeching about child trafficking. That genuinely gives me the fucking willies. Like, I don't know. Like, obviously there was some Trump and Epstein and Trump models and all that shit. I don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
But it feels to me like there's some dart underbellies of this fucking shit that we still have to.
Oh my God. Every week, somebody else in Trump's orbit goes to prison for child trafficking. So it's like when we talk about projection, it's real. That is just real. Oh my God, it's so real. So we are at the top of the hour. We have a friend named Wes Clark Jr., who we absolutely are such fans of. His work is so great. And he said something that I would like everybody to repeat because I think it's important.
I think everything that we're seeing right now can sort of be, in my view, concentrated to that one little idea, right? To make it bad and shameful to fight for social justice. I mean, imagine, but that's what it is. That's what this whole thing is about making you think that being alone, to your point, that if you don't follow the 10 commandments, right, that is the way to salvation. And it is it's just one of the sort of scariest reverse ideas that I've heard, and I just
look, the way to salvation is not to be an asshole.